Welcome to The Actor's Choice, where the actors and actresses have a chance to talk about themselves and their careers. Join us now for the next hour as we explore the marvelous industry of acting by actors and actresses from today's exciting show business world. And now, direct from Hollywood, here's your host, Ron Brewington.
Hi everybody, I'm Ron Brewington, and welcome to The Actor's Choice.
Hey, William. Yeah, Lester. You know, pretty soon the smart cars are going to drive the retail companies out of business.
Why do you say that?
Well, when you get behind your attendants, the smart cars are going to drive themselves back to the finance company. And the truth to you that your car's not been stolen, they're going to deposit a total of oil in your driveway in the shape of a happy face.
Gosh, he's so real. God, he's so real. Like another human being sitting there.
All right, go.
Okay. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, our special guests today are the marvelous Willie Tyler and his partner Lester. Now, Willie worked hard over the years to become one of the top ventriloquists in the world. Today, we'll talk about the things that he had to do, including serving his country in the United States military. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's with great honor and pride that we present to you Willie Tyler and Lester. Yeah.
Hey, guten Morgen.
Hey.
Good afternoon. Hello there.
Hey, it's good to see you guys.
Nice
again.
seeing you, Ron.
Nice to see you again.
Nice.
You just showed a little tape in there where they showed you and I the last time we got together on the show, and you brought this handsome young man with you. It's always a
Thank you.
pleasure to see
You're so kind.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
it's good to have you guys here today. The story of your beginnings is marvelous. You grew up in Detroit. Large family?
There's 10 of us.
10?
10 of us. 10 of us.
It's not Detroit, though, Ron. It's Detroit.
Detroit?
Detroit.
If you say
It's
so.
a French word. It's a French word. But Detroit.
Parlez-vous
Detroit.
français?
Un peu. That means petite.
Petite. You grew up in Detroit, Detroit, and where you watched a lot of TV, a lot of nighttime television, where when you were young and you would see ventriloquists like Paul Winfield. Please take it from there.
Well, you know, we had gotten a television set, and back in those days, television was just black and white TVs. You know, so there was a gentleman there by the name of Paul Winchell. He had a weekly show at that time, sponsored by, I remember this well, sponsored by Spidell Watch Band. I remember that. And so I watched him manipulate Jerry Mahoney and the Knucklehead Smith, his characters. And the very next day, I tried to emulate what he did. So I took my sister's discarded doll and did a MacGyver. MacGyver, yeah, with a coping saw, a rubber band, a string, and a straight pin. I was able to make the mouth rock back and forth. So I used that until I was able to buy a store-bought one.
Okay. And so when did you actually meet Lester for the first time?
Lester came along.
Go ahead. I want to hear this, too.
Okay. He came along when I was about 13, and I got him out of a catalog.
Oh.
Because I had taken a correspondence course.
Okay.
And I got him out of a catalog. And in the catalog, they had ventriloquist figures. And they didn't have the names. They had like little numbers, you know, little numbers like convict numbers, you know. So I got that particular, I saw this particular character, not this particular one, but I saw a particular character, and I ordered that particular one. I got him home, but I couldn't think of a name for him. So I'd come home from school every day. I'd deliver newspapers, and I'd come home from school and sit him in the corner, and far away I'd look at him and say, what does he really look like? What can I call him? My brother came home from school one day and said, I got it. Delano came home from school one day, and he said, I got it. He said, name him Lester, because there's a guy in study hall. He looks just like him. And Lester came into being.
There it is. Just one name.
Yes.
Like
world
Cher.
famous.
Like Cher.
Yeah, like Cher.
Prince.
Yeah.
One name.
Famous all over the world. When the ladies see you, what do they say to you, Lester?
They go, oh.
You are a card, young man. You are a card. Between school and delivering newspapers, you found the time to perform in variety shows and talent contests, developing your style.
Yeah, you've probably seen the show called Showtime at the Apollo.
Oh, yes.
Now, in Detroit, they used to have theaters like that.
Uh-huh.
And all around the city there, and particular nights they have the amateur shows.
Okay.
And so what happened was like I'd get into the amateur shows, and if you remember watching Showtime at the Apollo,
Oh, yes.
the amateur portion of that can be mean.
Oh,
you know,
God, yes.
and that's the way it was in Detroit.
Yes.
You know, so I had this little. I think at that particular time I had that little doll that I jerry rigged. You know, Lester had come along, and I'd go out there and do particular. I didn't have an act. I just go out there and do, and People would throw the popcorn boxes. They'd go boo, you know. But that's what that was the name of the game. That's what they did. And at the end, all the talent, the MC would line the talent up, and then they would put their hand over each contestant's hand, and people would either applaud, boo, or whatever. And you win first, second, or third prizes. And I kept losing. But then I remember in December, the latter part of one year, I started winning.
All right.
So that worked out nicely for me.
Indeed, indeed.
I didn't know that.
Oh.
Because I wasn't around then.
You learned something today?
Yeah. I learned something every day I get out the suitcase.
Right. That's interesting how you guys travel together. Can you tell our viewers about that?
Well, it's the idea is like, Lester travels on the plane with me. And people don't know he's on the plane. He's disguised in such a way that you don't see that. The reason why I do that, because one time I was working with the famous Sammy Davis Jr. in Lake Tahoe. And I used to check Lester's body. To check his body. And what happened was like, I was coming from L.A. to Reno. And I'd gotten to Reno, and Lester, I had his head, but the body, wasn't there. And I went to the airlines. I said, I had a case. They said, oh, yeah, it's in L.A. It'll be here the next flight. So the next flight, that's 4:30 in the afternoon. Right. The next flight was 8:30 that night. We were working in Tahoe with Sammy Davis Jr. First show in Tahoe was 8:30. Now, I didn't get the first. I missed that first show, but I got there for the second show. Yeah. But I'm glad if I had to miss that show, I'm glad I missed it with Sammy Davis Jr. because what he did, he went out because it was like employees' night at a casino called Harrah's. It was employees' night in the showroom. So he did my time, he did his time, because when you're working in casinos, even the headliners, they can only do X amount of time. Right. But since I wasn't there, he did my time. He was like in hog heaven that night. So it worked out nicely. He said, I understand. It's happened to me. No big deal.
He is a very valuable asset indeed. You don't want to lose him. Don't want to lose that.
Son to do this. I used to get his hand-me-downs.
You do as ventriloquist, you throw your voice. Explain that, please.
Well, it's the idea of like if you don't see the source of where the sound is coming from, you think in your mind that it's being thrown. So it's basically like lip syncing. Actors, singers come out and they sing. You don't see the source of the sound system.
Right.
Their mouth is moving.
Go ahead, I'm chewing gum.
And so they take it for granted that the sound is coming from there.
It's amazing how you're able to pronounce these words without ever moving your lips. Because some words you just can't get over. You have to pronounce.
And enunciate.
Yes.
But it's like what's happening in that kind of a situation. If you go to the restaurant and you get some coffee and you put sugar in it, it's sweet. Or you go to a restaurant and you get sugar substitute, you put it in there, it's sweet. So it's not the same, but it tastes the same.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with words. Yes. You can substitute a word to make it sound like the word that's very difficult to say, because a lot of P's are very difficult to say and stuff like that.
Okay. Throughout your career, was Lester the only character that you had?
Lester was pretty much the main character. I got a character one time.
You did?
Yeah, I got a character one time. And from the same lady, it was an English-made character, ventriloquist. But I never used the character because I could not figure out what to do with it. And a lot of ventriloquists, they have a lot of characters, But I only have this one character because reason why is because all the energies are put into Lester. So people know Lester as opposed to 6 or 7 or 8 characters you got, and people say, where's and they can't think of the name of the character that they're trying to talk about.
Yeah. He's a valuable guy. Okay, back to developing your career. You served 4 years in the United States Air Force.
The Air Force?
The Air Force, that's right.
Air Force.
Lackland, huh? Yeah, I went in there. What happened when I got out of high school, and the reason why I went in the Air Force, because back in those days, it was like a situation where if you weren't going to college or you had some kind of way of not going into service, you would have to volunteer for a branch of the service. If you didn't, you would be drafted. Because the draft was in. Yeah. So I didn't want to go in the Army, because then they draft you in the Army. Oh, yes. So I said, I'll go for the Air Force. Right. So I went in the Air Force. Luckily enough, when I got in the Air Force, I was able to get special services.
All right.
So all the time I was in there, I was performing. We did a lot of. We worked at places like service clubs on Air Force bases.
There you are in a uniform. My God. Thank
Yep.
you for your service to this country. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So you left the service, you returned to Detroit, and a few years later you signed up as talent with Berry Gordy's Motown Records and the Motown Review. Can you talk
Motown
about
Review.
that?
Yeah, Motown Review used to go. We used to go. See what happened was, Berry Gordy. You know, it was like a situation. They had a MC by the name of Bill Murray. Bill Murray was one of the MCs. Oh, he was the MC. Then they needed another MC. So his family were up in upper state Michigan at a summer resort, and we were working up there, and they saw us up there, and then when they got back to Detroit, they mentioned it, and then my manager then his name was Maurice King. He was with Motown, getting to Motown also. So I went over to they used to have a meeting on Wednesdays,
Okay.
and they would have people come in, and so we went in. We did about 3 minutes, and they said okay. They said okay, thank you. So we left. And by the time we got home, they called and said, "Welcome to the family." So we were with them for the 8 years, traveling on the bus with the Supremes, Temptations, Four Tops, Little Stevie Wonder. But of course, back then, Little Stevie Wonder didn't travel on the bus because he had a tutor, so they traveled in the station wagon. And plus, he had all his toys, meaning his keyboards and stuff like that. Because when they got to the hotel or whatever, they would take all these keyboards, put them in the room, and he was Little Stevie Wonder. He was constantly working on songs back then.
Yeah. I saw Stevie a couple of weeks ago. I used to work at KGLH years ago.
No, that's his station, right?
Yes, indeed, that's his station. And one of our top DJs, Cliff Winston, passed away. And Stevie came to the funeral, and he sat down at that keyboard, and I mean, he put his foot in there.
Oh yeah. Stevie's that way. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love Stevie.
Yeah.
He's not dirty.
So after 8 years, you left Motown. Let's fast forward to the late 60s where you got your first break in a TV show called Where the Action Is. Tell us about that.
Well, it was the latter 60s, but the reason where the action is was like a musical show. They had music with Dick Clark,
Okay.
Recording artists
Yes.
would appear on there. But because I was hooked up with Motown, that's how I was able to get into where the action was, because they would have the Four Tops on there. It was at the beach, where the action is. You had accent at the beach, lip syncing the songs and stuff like that, to their hit records and stuff. So we were able to get into that. And one of the things we did was like in Detroit, Michigan, at a place called the Rooster Tail.
Rooster Tail, yes.
And we did Lester. We sang a song called Fever, and that of course that was lip synced, and it was at the beach near the water right there. And we sang that particular thing on one of our Dick Clark shows.
Making the move from Detroit to Los Angeles, how was that for you?
Well, it's okay with me.
Like these little
I
ladies?
come out and visit my relatives, palm trees.
And the weather is good out here.
Yeah, and the weather's good. That's good. No, what happened? We made the move out. The reason why we made the move out here because we were doing television shows like the Flip Wilson Show, and that came from L.A. And we did the Hollywood Palace. That was hosted by Diana Ross and Supremes.
Yes.
And on the Hollywood Palace, let's see, it was like the Jackson 5, they were on that particular show. Sammy Davis Jr. was on that particular show. Gladys Knight and the Pips, they were on that particular show. But it's the idea, we moved out here because this is where all the television stuff was happening.
And you're doing a lot of commercials too at the same time.
Well, the commercials came along later.
Okay. Okay. But you were doing some big shows like David Frost from 1969 to 1972, The Electric Company from 1972 to 1973, Rowan and Martin's Laughing. You on that show?
Well, no, that's the reason why we moved out to California, because Rowan and Martin's Laughing was done out here. So it was like we were going to do it was the last season, very last season, so we were going to do it. So we said, why not move out? So we moved out here and we did it in Burbank Studios, the Rowan and Martin's Laughing. And that it was one of the reasons why we moved out here, because all the television stuff was pretty much done out here.
Well, you also appeared on one of the shows that you were on was the Steve Allen Show. We have a short clip of what you two guys performing on.
It's actually an HBO special, hosted by Steve Allen.
Okay. All right.
He is considered ventriloquism's most outstanding musical entertainer. You'll also remember him, I'm sure, from the award-winning motion picture Coming Home. It's a very special pleasure to welcome Willie Tyler and Lester.
When you are so young, you want to be so old. That's not bad. What goes around comes around. on the young. Yes, I do then what I know now. Really couldn't make it this far. But years they come and go. We will always know the reason why. You may teach your clever, nothing lasts forever. The we may try. What goes around comes around again. What goes around comes around again. What goes around comes around, goes around. What goes around comes around, goes around.
Okay, all right. That was beautiful.
Yeah, that-
beautiful.
yeah.
Lester used to look good. I like that hat cocked to the side. man.
Yeah. He wrote that song. Yeah, I actually co-wrote that song with another guy named Wayne Bartlett. And but that was the HBO special. That was actually a ventriloquist special.
Really?
It was like a whole bunch of ventriloquists. Sherry Lewis was on there.
Yes.
Can't think. But a lot of other ventriloquists.
Right.
But it was the HBO special called. I think it was called the Vent Event.
Vent event. Because you did an appearance on David Letterman's show, and that was the first time it ever had you were the first ventriloquist on his show.
Well, they had the particular week.
Well, particularly, right.
And what happened was like it was like a salute to ventriloquism. So we kicked off the week. We were like on the very first. And David Letterman, we remember David Letterman from the Comedy Store, you know, because he was hanging out at the Comedy Store. And he used to MC.
Wow.
David Letterman used to MC at the Comedy Store.
David Letterman.
And he remembers us from there. It was that particular show. It was like everything fell into place, right? Yeah, everything. The audience. It's just everything was perfect.
Yes.
Because you ever been in a situation where nothing goes right?
And then done that.
Everything fell into place, and that made me feel good. Yeah, I always wanted to do the Ed Sullivan Show, but I never did the Ed Sullivan Show. So as in my mind, in a way I did the Ed Sullivan Show because David Letterman's show came from the Ed Sullivan Theater. So in my mind, I said, I finally got to the Ed Sullivan Show. Right.
Now you guys have done, how many states have you traveled through?
I've been all 50 states.
Wow.
All 50 states, and it's like fun, right? Fun. Lots of fun. Yeah.
How about countries around the world?
We've been to several. We did a lot of the countries. Well, England. Well, it has a lot to do with language.
Okay.
You know, so with singers, music is universal, but when you're speaking, it's a different thing altogether.
Okay.
If people don't understand what you're saying.
Gotcha.
Right.
Lester, what's this been like for you, this whole experience?
I feel good. You know, I love being in the show business. I could have been a lawn jockey, but I love being in show business,
Yeah.
Ron.
Do you remember the last movie that you guys were in together, Lester?
Sorry? Movie?
Yeah, movie.
No, actually, we did actually, I did. There's one movie that's interesting. This particular movie
Right.
was called Coming Home with John Boyd and Bruce Dern and I can't James Fonda. It was like how the producer, I mean, the director of the movie. I went to Malibu to his place, and they wanted me to go there with Lester. So he came off the beach there, and I talked with Lester for a few minutes, and he went out and he came back in. Because he was a hippie guy, sort of like a hippie guy. I can't think of his name offhand. But anyway, he came back and said, he was scratching his head. He says, well, we want to go with you, but do you mind if we go with another character? You know? And so I remember that. So what happened was, like, they made up a Vietnamese character. They made up a Vietnamese character. So if you watch that movie Coming Home, you'll see me in the wheelchair with the Vietnamese character. But the idea was like, Lester didn't mind, right?
Right, because it was my voice.
It was his voice. So he got money for the voiceover.
The technique that you use as a ventriloquist, how did you develop that technique, particularly getting this young man to move around like you do?
You know, I'd seen Edgar Bergen. I went to a low place just across the river from Detroit there, the Elmwood Casino in Windsor, Ontario. He was working there. It was the middle of the week. It was like Wednesday, middle of the week, and I went in to see. It was like, the place wasn't jammed because back in the days when nightclubs were pretty much going down. You know?
Yes.
So, and he put on a great show. So after I went to the maitre d', I says, Mr. Bergen, would I be able to see him? And the maitre d', he knew I was because we were doing the Mike Douglas shows and the Merv Griffin shows and stuff. So he says, he's in that room right there. So I went and knocked on the door. And he and his wife were in there eating dinner. felt kind of upset. I like, I don't want to, So he says, well, come on in. So I went in and started talking to him. He says, where's your character? And Lester was in the trunk of the car. It's cold out there too, man. It was cold. And I went and got Lester, brought him in, and I did a couple of things with him. He says, you know what you're doing wrong? And I'll show you what was, when Lester talked like this, right? Yeah, okay. And but when he wasn't talking, and I was talking, and I was doing one of these, so you can see what's happening with him. I was talking, and he says, you know what you're doing wrong? And I said, what? He says, you got to keep him moving all the time.
Right.
Even though he's not talking,
right.
you keep him realistic. You got to keep him moving around like that. So I do this exercise.
It's good exercise. You guys look great together. Great team.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, and as we said earlier, one of the best ventriloquists in the world. So
Thank you. See the play.
Are we going to see more younger persons now getting into this ventriloquism?
No, they've always ventriloquists, young ventriloquists, because they have the Lester doll. The Lester doll's on the market. It's been on the market for about 30, 40 years. And people buy that Lester doll. The kids bought the Lester doll. I run into a lot of people saying, when I was a kid, I had the Lester doll. But they had it, they were doing it back then, but it's because of the social networking nowadays. That's why you see more ventriloquists. But back then, they didn't have the social network, so you didn't see all the people that were into the ventriloquism. Wow. But because of Facebooks and stuff like that, and I got a lot of fans on Facebook and who are ventriloquists, and they're all over the place.
Wow. How many black ventriloquists were there when you first started out and now?
Well, it's the idea. There probably were a lot, but going back to vaudeville, there was a guy back in vaudeville who had ventriloquist characters, and they were on a particular rod or something like that, where he could manipulate different figures at different times. But again, that was before the social networking. Gotcha. So there was a lot of that going on, but nobody really knew of it.
Okay. Well, besides being a ventriloquist, you're also an actor. You're a comedian. When do you get time to do all these things?
You funny? He's funny? He's straight man.
No, it's it's just the idea of I love showbiz. A lot of people will ask, a lot of entertainers who do live performances.
Yes.
Be it singing, be it comedy. A lot of, if you probably know this, a lot of entertainers, they never retire. They never retire when you're doing live stuff, because there's something about going on stage, the light hits you, you get the reaction from the audience, good or bad, and when you come off at the end, you feel good. You feel good. So you can't walk away from that. Red Fox didn't walk away from it, and what's Mr. Excitement? What's his name? He just passed away. He insults people. Don Rickles. Don Rickles never walked away. I mean, because it's just something about being out there and performing.
That's a question I would never ask you two guys. I would never ask that question.
Retire?
Yeah.
So you know that Indiana Jones, that movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're doing another one.
Yes, they're gonna do another one. Yes.
Yeah, they're doing.
Indy.
Indy, you know what it is about that movie? He's going all. Let's see, what's his name? Harrison Ford. He's going all over the world trying to find the guy who stole his Social Security check.
Wow. Lester, you always come out in a
He
sharp,
didn't get that.
Oh, you didn't get. Okay. You always have a good-looking outfit on. Where you getting them clothes from, man?
Oh, this is my winter stuff.
We were just outside of St. Louis, and we did a performance there. So it's kind of chilly. Well, it's cold there. It was cold. So he wears, he keeps up with what's happening with the climates. Okay. When in the summertime he wears a little cool shirt that's cool, and then wintertime he wears stuff that's warm.
Wow. You guys have received numerous awards over the years, but having a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame seems to be eluding you. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, I don't lose any sleep though. Why don't you lose any sleep?
Because there are a lot of entertainers who've been around 100 years.
Yeah.
And they got Academy Awards and everything like that.
Yeah.
They never got their star, but they don't lose any sleep. I won't lose any sleep because I can't close my eyes.
Well, As you know, I've been able to get a star for several people: Marvin Gaye, the Hollandos, the Miracles, and a few others. And we tried to put you twice already. We both put you up for that star.
cool,
You didn't
cool.
get it. Well, here and now, let's submit your name again this year and every year that we do this. There's another guy that I do this for, and that is Jackie Wilson. So it'll be Jackie Wilson
Jackie
and
Wilson.
Willie, Tyler, and Lester. We're going to do it until you get that
Yeah,
star.
phenomenal Jackie Wilson. Oh man, yeah.
Indeed. Future projects, sir.
We're working on now a documentary.
Okay.
Documentary on us. Yes. And you know, with documentaries, it takes a while.
Yeah.
You know, because we're going to be going back down. Because I was born in Alabama, a little town in Alabama called Red Level. It's like, and then we moved to Detroit when I was 5 years old. But a lot of the Temptations were from Alabama.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
So a lot of entertainers come from the South and then moving north. So anyway, we're working on that particular thing, and so we're going to be moving around and interviewing particular people about us and about Lester and stuff like that. So we're looking forward to that.
Great. How about writing a book?
Yeah, I know the book. Well, pretty much the documentary is pretty much would be the book itself.
Okay.
You know, it'll show what you would read in the book.
Okay. How about teaching ventriloquism?
You know, I never. It's almost like a lot of like Chuck Berry is a great, phenomenal guitar player, but he never taught. He never taught. It's something you can't. It's hard for me to teach that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's there, but there might be other people who are able to teach it. But it's just I can do it, but it's hard to teach.
Okay. How about your work routine? Do you do more shows now, less shows, and get a chance to do some hobbies maybe?
Well, you know, it's like a lot of well, come to think of it, a lot of entertainment. I work on cars, you know, like repairing cars and stuff like that. I like doing that particular thing. Because when I was growing up, it was like woodworking in the shop. I made matter of fact, I made my first ventriloquist figure. But it really didn't look like a ventriloquist figure. But I like to work, you know, I'm like a handyman kind of thing, working with my hands and stuff like that. So I love doing that kind of stuff.
Got you. Got just a few more minutes. Lester, you got anything you want to say before we get out of here?
No, I'm just ditto what he just said.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Well,
See, when I went on under the leather, he helps me out.
Yeah, when maintenance and stuff like that, then you know I take care of the kid.
got you. Advice that you have to give or want to give to persons who want to be a ventriloquist?
What's the idea of like when I first started out being a ventriloquist, a lot of people in the neighborhood would look and say, what is this? You know, why are you doing that? See, if you listen to some of the negative things that people say, that might throw you off. But it's the idea, if deep down inside you want to do it, you put blinders on and you do it.
Yes.
You know, because other people can throw you off.
Yes.
You know, it's not that they, you know, it's just they don't want to see you. They don't want to see you move ahead.
Gotcha.
You know, nothing personal, but they just don't want to see you move ahead. So it's the idea, you put the blinders on and go for it, and there it is.
Gotcha.
There it is.
Yeah. How do you want to be remembered?
You?
I was just one nice little looking dude.
And I just say that's Willie, Tyler, and Lester was Willie, Tyler, and Lester.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming back again. It's been 2 years since we got together. Let's don't let 2 years do it again.
Yes.
Get you back another time. Willie, thank you
Thank you
so
much. I appreciate it.
Little guy, thank you so much, man.
Here's my
Thank
hand.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you guys.
Nice seeing you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. I want to thank our special guests today, Willie, Tyler, and Lester, and want to thank all of you. We'll see you again next time.